Sekeres and Price for Thursday, November 7th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic, historic Wall Center in downtown Vancouver. Got your tickets to the big game? Why not make it a full experience? Stay downtown here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres and Price rate. Some blackout date supply based on availability. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches, conducting things. We've got a big show planned for you as the Vancouver Canucks play their first big divisional game of the season tonight in Los Angeles against a Kings team that has had a very good start to their season. Against all odds, some might say. How are you?
Satisfactory, you?
Fantastic.
Yeah? Why so fantastic?
Oh, well, found out the cat, who yesterday was suspected of just having gas, actually had a bacterial infection. So we're now up to $1,000 on it, but at least there was a core cause for these vet visits as opposed to just gas. So that's cleared
positive.
up. He's better already.
Yeah.
And we can go forward with trust. Because he was not my favorite guy yesterday. Looking at him like $750 because you had gas. Anyways, digress.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. What is Conor Garland to the Canucks? Role player or star player? You can vote at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. Blake Price, what says you?
And everybody has tried to walk the middle ground. Folks, we didn't give you middle ground. You have to choose. We're going to hear guests even call them star role players. No, we didn't give you that option. But I know it's really hard because it feels like he's somewhere in between. And for that reason, I'm going to still say role player. It's close, but it's a sample size that is smaller at this current scoring rate, and until we see it for 82 games, I'm not saying he's incapable of it, but until we see it for that amount of time, he's just a role player on a really good run right now.
Yeah. Incredible start. Bona fide top six guy. Star player for me is certain thresholds and benchmarks that Conor Garland has not yet achieved. If he gets past 30 goals, we can have the conversation. If he gets past 80 points, we can have the conversation. But I voted role player. Although you can make a very good argument that he has been the best Vancouver Canuck through 11 games. Obviously, Quinn Hughes and Kevin Lankinen are on that short list, but he is right there with them on the podium. It is your last chance to take advantage of specials on 2024 models at Surrey Mitsubishi. I am driving this 2024 Outlander PHEV, the hybrid. It is absolutely magnificent. As a matter of fact, today we're taking some family for a ride in it. Show it off.
I took my nephew for a ride in mine, and he got in. He's like, wow, this cockpit is something else. And it is.
It really is. Special offer here when you trade in any vehicle on a new 2024 Surrey Mitsubishi is going to give you $3,000 above market value for your trade. Take advantage of rates as low as 1.9%. The extended warranty on the 2024 PHEV at no charge, plus a $1,000 credit towards winter tires. And they're saying it's going to be a snowy winter. Only while inventory lasts, and only at Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey. Online at surreymitsubishi.ca. Okay, time for our top story. Brought to you by Yellow Dog Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. First divisional showdown of the year with the Vancouver Canucks in Los Angeles to face the Kings. And I understand that they opened their season last month against a divisional opponent in the Calgary Flames. And I also understand the Flames are off to a decent start, or we're off to a decent start. But we got some meat on the bone now. We're 11 games in, more than an eighth of the way through the season. And after dispatching the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks, the JV of California, now they get the varsity in the Kings, who incidentally, while I would have preferred the crown and the Forum blue, not purple, and gold be brought back, they have gone back to the old Gretzky-style logo there, huh?
The Chevrolet.
Yes.
Yes.
It's beautiful. They have had a number of terrific logos and jerseys over the years, if you ask me.
Well, they sure turned back the clock in more ways than one. Have you seen what Andrei Kopitar's doing this year?
You were getting drunk on Kopitar today, looking at his stat.
He's better than a point per game right now. He is 37 years of age, better than a point per game, and I defy any of you not to be shocked at his career total for points.
I guess something shy of 1,000, and Blake edified me, 12 and change?
1226 already.
And he's nearing 1,500 NHL games? Is that right?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Like, he's going to get to 1,500, not this year, but next. And he's going to get to, maybe to 1,400 points after all is said and done? Andrei Kopitar.
Yeah, so a slam dunk Hall of Famer with 2 Stanley Cups on his resume as well.
Out of Slovenia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. What a story.
Al Murray, the former head scout for the Canadian World Junior program, then the Kings, and then the Lightning, had tons of success, helped build cup champs in both cities. He has told me the story about going to scout Kopitar at the World Junior B Championships in Slovenia many years ago. And look, consider what the World Junior B Championships look like. And yet NHL scouts were beating a path that year to go see this kid Kopitar, who, needless to say, has put his country on the hockey map. Kings are 3-0-1 at home, so without a regulation loss there at Crypto.com Arena. 8-3-3 on the season, good for 19 points. That's 4 better than the Vancouver Canucks, albeit in 3 additional games. Vancouver does have a slightly better winning percentage than does LA, 862 to 879. But depending on how you want, this is for second place right now, with Vegas out to a 9-3-1 start, 19 points, nice win, comeback victory over the Edmonton Oilers last night in Connor McDavid's return. And I'll say this about the Kings. I was one of many who thought that they would fall from grace this year. Not that they had done anything all that special in previous years, but I thought this was a team that could slide down the Western Conference standings, and it's still possible. And I thought that even before Drew Doughty suffered that serious injury in the preseason. They had moved on from Pierre-Luc Dubois. What a terrible trade that was for them. Goaltending was an issue, of course. Brought Darcy Kemper into the fold as part of that Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. The other thing about them is, if you look back a few years ago, people were over the moon about the Kings prospect pipeline and how they had so many good young players knocking the door, and that this would be a team to be reckoned with in the NHL's West when they all grew up. Well, they have spent some of those assets in trade. Brock Faber stands out to the Minnesota Wild, finished as the runner-up to Connor Bedard for Rookie of the Year last year. Byfield is hitting. He's growing up before our eyes. That's a good player there. Alex Turcotte was a very high pick who has yet to manifest. Brant Clark has finally emerged. I shouldn't say finally. He's just 21, but yeah, he's a right-shot defenseman with all sorts of offensive acumen. But it hasn't really gone as many suspected for the Kings a few years back. Maybe they got a little too impatient making that Dubois trade, making some of the Fiala trade with the Minnesota Wild. But here they are with a good start to the season.
Both their goaltenders, though, under 900 save percentages. Mm-hmm. Like, there is an opportunity here for Canucks shooters.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And look, Brock Boeser in particular has feasted on the LA Kings over his career. Boeser has 17 goals against this team, 8 on the power play, 4 game winners, including 1 in overtime. He's got a hat trick against LA, and He's got 17 goals on 70 shots, which means he's shooting just shy of 25% against this Kings team over his career. That is making hay. That is getting paid.
It's really startling. Like, how do you even get that many games to get?
Divisional, you're playing them 4 times a year.
I suppose. Mm-hmm. But that's remarkable.
The other thing that we should say about the Kings, just in case you have any PTSD from last year, they no longer play that life-sucking 1-3-1 trap that they did last year. You may remember that last year we got to the point where we were talking about potential first-round matchups for the Vancouver Canucks, and there was a general consensus across the province of British Columbia. We wouldn't mind the Kings because we think the Canucks are better and can get over them. But who wants to watch 4 to 7 games of LA Kings hockey in that 1-3-1 trap? That was absolutely mind-numbing and took all life, spirit, and forward momentum out of the game. That said, it was reasonably effective for the Kings, who did well against the Canucks.
There's only one team that Brock Boeser has a better goals per game mark against, and it should stick out. We've talked about it before. Who is it?
Oh, Pittsburgh.
That's right. 11 goals in 12 games versus Pittsburgh, but this is a bigger sample size, so harder to keep up this level of a pace almost.
Mm-hmm. So if you don't recall, going back last year, the Kings and Canucks played 4 times, and the LA Kings got 3 victories against the Canucks. The only loss they had was a 2-1 game in March, and the Kings put up goals against the Canucks. This counterattacking system worked for them. They scored 5 in a victory over the Canucks in February. They scored 6 in a victory over the Canucks in April. So the Vancouver Canucks, I think, would be amongst the first in line to say thank you, Coach Hiller. Thank you, LA Kings, for no longer playing that trap. And in fact, it was Kopitar who announced that to reporters in training camp. That's the sort of credibility you have when you're a captain, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. You know your audience is out there going, God, we hate the way we play. And he was more than happy to tell reporters in preseason, we're getting away from that. We're not going to play that.
Well, forwards especially, right?
Oh, yeah.
Skilled forwards, hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Yeah. So the Vancouver Canucks, 5-1 on the road. They only got the 1 win at home so far this year in 5 tries, but they got 5 victories on the road. Look, we all understand outside of the Florida teams that they haven't really played world beaters on the road. Like, nobody fears a trip to the Shark Tank these days, the pond in Anaheim, or to Chicago. So there's a little bit of context that we should add there. The Florida games, they split them. They won 1 in Florida. In overtime, they lost to Tampa. But 5-1 is still a fantastic mark. And, of course, 6-1 and sweeping this California trip would put the Canucks basically right there where they were last season after that with a fantastic start going into Saturday's big showdown here at Rogers Arena against Connor McDavid.
Now, we've seen a diminishing impact of home ice in all of sport, home period in all of sport, but in home ice as well. We saw it in the playoffs last year that there was a lot of road series. So it's a little bit strange where we're at, but there are teams like the Vegas Golden Knights who are 8-0 at home. The Jets are 6-1 at home. The Washington Capitals are 7-1 at home. So you hope that the Canucks can, when they come back, when they can win a home game, they do take care of business. But to get off to a rip-roaring start would be something. Although there's a lot of good teams out there. The Rangers are 4-1, Minnesota 5-1, Carolina's 5-1 on the road. Jets are 6-0. So there's a few teams that are making hay away, but those are elite teams, and you expect them to be able to compete when they're not in their home ice. So they can't win a home game when they're on the road, but to bank some points. I mean, if you get to 6-1, you've got what, a quarter of your road wins already? Like, if you get to 24 road wins, you're doing very well.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So to knock off a quarter of them by November the 7th would be something else.
Mm-hmm. What are our friends at Yellow Dog and Neighborhood up to?
Well, they want to remind you again of the fabulous specials that they have on all month long. The Chase My Tail Pale Ale is on special. The Tall Can 4-packs at all government and private liquor stores throughout the course of the month of November. And the West Coast Pilsner, the Crush Fresh Hop West Coast Pilsner. That's quite the name. Again, in totality, the Fresh Crush Fresh Hop West Coast Pilsner. Whew. That's 6.
Peter Piper picked a...
It's a 7-word title for the Pilsner.
Imagine this. How do they get it all on the label?
It's punchy. It's complex. And it's fresh. Just like your favorite 90s pop band. Go check it out.
Also should mention before we leave focus of this Canucks-Kings game, you know, I like everybody to get along. Can't we just all get along? I hope that's a governing principle for our friends down south these days and what's going forward. But you see, the Whitecaps and the Canucks have gotten together on a Beat LA theme to the week. You got the Canucks versus Kings tonight. You have the Caps versus LAFC tomorrow. Caps are doing some fun social stuff.
That'd be a great last-second trip here. Right now, drop everything you...
Well, no, keep watching the show. As soon as the show is done, get thee to YVR. You got a doubleheader of Vancouver teams in LA you got to get to.
28 hours of Vancouver versus LA. That's pretty good.
Yeah, Vancouver sports. We have to spend a minute here on Dakota Joshua. He was not out there for morning skate today. He was not out there yesterday.
And wasn't out for the game day skate versus the Ducks.
No. It was 2 weeks ago tomorrow that Rick Tocchet said, skating's great. He's in great form skating-wise. The next thing to happen here is that he feels the game. Tocchet used that phrase, feels the game, meaning it's time for him to get into a contact sweater and see, take some bumping and stuff from his teammates in practice, and that would be the fun. We were sitting here last week talking about, will Joshua make his season debut against the San Jose Sharks? And then there was this week where earlier in the week, Tocchet said it was, quote, a real possibility that Joshua made his season debut in this game against LA.
Now, he said that on the game day skate for the Ducks where he wasn't there. So that was a little bit weird for me. He's not here, but you're declaring him a possibility for Thursday.
And then yesterday he expressed doubts about Joshua playing today and then talked about how they were going to take a cautious approach. Boy, I sure hope he hasn't had a setback, but just flatly looking at it, it sounds like a setback, or at least sounds like they are being awfully judicious. Everyone involved here is being awfully judicious. So, who knows? You maybe got a knock in practice, this or that. Needless to say, Dakota Joshua is going through something here in his recovery from testicular cancer that is a little different than your garden variety injury.
Yeah.
So it may well just be that, and it may well be that, Dakota has to get over. I can imagine there's some apprehension. Again, hockey players are accustomed to coming back from knees and arms and ankles and, all those sorts of ailments. This one's a little bit different. So a little surprised that we haven't seen him yet. You do wonder whether everything's okay there, and you do hope for the sake of the young man that everything is okay there. The other part about it is if it's just caution and nothing further, well, his teammates are doing their part because they're winning hockey games. It applies to Thatcher Demco with the way that Kevin Lankinen is playing, and it applies to Dakota Joshua with the way that Kiefer Sherwood and some of these other wingers are playing, in some cases up the lineup in his stead.
No, you don't need him in the lineup tonight. It's really not about that. It's just about, hey, he was pretty omnipresent at all practices and game day skates up until 2 days ago. And now it's 3 straight days where he's absent. So a little clarity would be nice if it's not a setback.
And I suspect you will get that clarity. It's a 7:30 start again tonight, folks.
Yeah.
And I suspect you're looking at a team day off tomorrow for the Vancouver Canucks. They'll travel and get back quite late, although he has practiced once already this year after a late flight back from Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. But I suspect you're looking at a team day off tomorrow, then a morning skate Saturday in advance of the game against Edmonton, and I would think that we would probably know more from Coach after that Saturday morning skate when you're here in front of the totality of the Vancouver press corps. So, keep our eyes out for Dakota Joshua. He ain't going to play tonight. Eric Brannstrom will, and this will be the 9th game for Eric Brannstrom. You may remember Eric Brannstrom is eligible to be sent down to the farm and recalled without waivers until he hits 10 games or 30 days, which very much looks like it's going to happen Saturday, because right now, Blake, you can't take this guy out of the lineup, and you certainly can't take him out of the lineup when Derek Forbert isn't available. The news from our Irf Gafar is that Derek Forbert, who got hurt in practice yesterday, sounds like it's going to be weeks. So really tough go for Forbert this year.
Yeah.
As we have chronicled, lost his dad and has already suffered an injury here early in his Vancouver Canucks career. Brannstrom, where would they be without him?
Well, he's added some balance, I think, in the profile of players that they've got in the back line. And we all, I think, looked at the 4 giants that they had signed. I guess they all were signed, weren't they? No, Carson Soucy, I guess, had a remaining contract. But the 4 guys that they had on the back end that were giants, and we thought, okay, all those useful, but all of them on the ice at the same time? Really? They needed something else. And Juleson wasn't that different of a player either. So he just brings a different quiver, or a different arrow into the quiver. And, he isn't the offensive player that we thought he would be upon draft day, but that's okay. For where he is in the Canucks lineup right now, I don't think he's ever going to rise into a top 4 role. But where he is right now,
I'm not going to limit him.
I mean, who knows? He's still relatively young.
Well, that's what I mean, Blake,
Yeah.
is he's still relatively young. He just turned 25 in September. He's a European Swedish defenseman who had to adapt to the North American ice. And, with everything that Frank Corrado told us, that basically he got scared into being a safe player. If he can prove to Tocchet and Foote, and he's in the midst of proving to Tocchet and Foote that he can be a reliable defensive player, I think the next step for him would be, okay, son, go explore some of that offense, because the skills are there. The talent and aptitude is there. So, yeah, in your mid-20s, the chalk here is that he is what he is, or there will be incremental improvements from here. But, yeah, I wouldn't count him out in terms of being a top 4, or at least number 4 at some point into his career, if he continues to build on this strong start to the season. We shall see.
Yeah.
Now, the other Canuck who is out of the lineup right now, of course, is goaltender Thatcher Demco, who yesterday practiced with his teammates on the ice but didn't practice against his teammates, did sort of individual workouts while his teammates were down the other end. He's back out there this morning. Things seem to be progressing well for Thatcher Demco. Patrick Johnson told us yesterday he thought end of the month. I'm wondering if there's a world where Thatcher Demco's back a little sooner than that. I'm wondering, because we may well get to the point, and you and Jeff were big on this last week, until he practices with his teammates, don't talk to me about Thatcher Demco, because that's the next step. And until that happens, really nothing else matters. Well, the more he practices with his teammates, and I suspect you're going to see more of that here over the next week, then you're reduced to, okay, well, next step is play a game. Test it out. You got a big long homestand starting here after tonight's game. You got 6 games straight at home, covering 10 days or so. Yeah. I'm starting to feel a Thatcher Demco vibe here. I'm starting to think that we might see the Canucks star goaltender at some point later this month.
I wonder if they want to start him on the road, though.
Why? Like,
Scrutiny.
You'll have your home fans behind you, though, in the arena.
Yeah.
You'll have last change in your home arena. You've got the Islanders, Chicago, Nashville, and more on them in a second, coming up here in 3 straight games, starting next a week from today. I think there are some nice soft landing spots with the encouragement and the adulation of all the Canucks fans at Rogers Arena.
Oh, he's not playing next week. They'll put, look at Dakota Joshua, for instance.
Okay, but that's cancer. This is a knee injury.
Yeah, but this is a goalie. I think he's going to be in full practice for 2 weeks before he plays a game. Mm-hmm. That would be my guess.
Well, I asked that just because they have that back-to-back Chicago-Nashville Grey Cup weekend here in Vancouver,
yeah,
with the Blackhawks on the Saturday and the Predators on the Sunday. And that, to me, is the next time where you need a second goaltender. So maybe I'm too optimistic, but I'm holding out hope that maybe there's a world where Thatcher Demco plays one of those games.
I mean, it would be wonderful. That would be a perfect landing spot. Just based on the way they've trotted him out, that seems fast. Mm-hmm. So I would guess it's a no, but that sounds a lot better than throwing Artie Shilovs against either Bedard or Stamkos at this point, given where Shilovs' game and confidence is likely at. Mm-hmm. And I know neither one of those teams is exactly hitting on all cylinders right now, but nevertheless.
We have got to spend a minute on the Nashville Predators here. And Mike, I'm not sure if you have the Canucks Army graphic, if we can get that up here. Oh, look at this. New camera angles today, huh? Mm-hmm. I'm just noticing this.
Don't have it yet, sir.
Okay. Showing my hands here. Interesting.
What, were you doing something with your hands
well,
earlier?
no, I'm just, I'm accustomed to.
Yeah.
And, boy, am I that pale? Am I that pasty? Am I overly? It was translucent? Okay.
He's rattled, folks. He's rattled.
No, do I look rattled?
Yeah, a little bit.
No, not so much.
Okay.
I was rattled at the vet's office when I got the bill. I'm not rattled here. Barry Trotz went on radio in Nashville and said if the team doesn't start winning soon, he threatened the, quote, rebuild plan. Now, I have a theory about this because Trotz is known as a pretty straight shooter. He was that as a coach. He has been that as a general manager. But the other thing he has been as a general manager is someone who has been a lot more interested in bringing veterans in on a retool than a rebuild. Now, perhaps he's hitting a breaking point. Perhaps he feels like, okay, this isn't working. We have to take it down to the studs. But my theory here is that this is a threat to his room more so than it is a message to the other 31 NHL general managers. And I say that because when you add 30-plus wingers like Stamkos, Marchessault, not to mention a 30-plus defenseman like Brady Shea, not to mention what he added the previous year when he signed our old buddy Luke Schenn and others, that's not a trajectory down rebuild boulevard. And in fact, in some cases, those contracts are going to be awfully difficult to move or downright impossible. I mean, Stamkos got a no move. Marchessault has a modified no trade. Forsberg, Josie, and Shea are on no moves. Interesting, UC Saros does not have a no move. But the other reason being, Nashville has one of the deepest farm systems in the league right now. I believe it's like 7 first-round picks who have yet to touch NHL ice that are in the Nashville pipeline, plus 3 additional first-round picks in this coming draft. I think you're way better off packaging young assets to improve your team than taking it down.
Matt, it's a total bluff.
To the studs.
They went crazy in free agency.
For a second straight year.
Am I missing things? They have the highest payroll in the league. And you're going to bail on it after a dozen games to start the season? Not a chance.
I smelled a rat. The second he uttered that, I thought to myself, this sounds to me like Coach Barry Trotz is messaging to his room more so than general manager Barry Trotz is messaging to his market or to trade partners. But if we're going to take him at his word, and Canucks Army's got a good thread going on X at Canucks Army, which players in a Nashville Predators rebuild would be trade targets for the Canucks?
Who's this Luke Shen character?
Yeah. North Vance Colton Sissons, a right shot centerman.
Yeah, he's a nice player.
31, 2 years left on a deal that pays him $2.8 million and isn't going to cost you Sun, Moon, and Stars. That's an interesting player. We talked about Alexander Carrier-Blake in the summer before he re-signed. He's on a 3-year deal at $3.75. For me, it was one of the more responsible, better free agent contracts out there. He's a right-handed defenseman. He's just 28 years old. Liked some of the things we saw out of him in the playoffs. Now, I have a lot of people in the mentions going bigger game hunting on Ryan O'Reilly, including many who were saying, remember the Canucks went after O'Reilly in free agency a couple of years ago. Love the Ryan O'Reilly resume. How can you not, including being a part of that St. Louis Blues Stanley Cup team. He'll be 34 years old in February. And we mentioned this actually earlier in the week. A lot of miles on the body, too. He was a 19-year-old NHLer, so we're 15 years deep here. He'll be 34 in February. He's a left shot, not a right shot. And he's $4.5 million for the next 2 years after this one.
And in terms of his aging curve, too, this is a guy who, coming off the ice the other night, said, that's one of the worst games I've ever played in my life. And I don't like to hear that from an older player because I get the feeling that's a guy who's saying, I can't do what I used to be able to do, and that's super frustrating for me. That's what I'm reading between those lines. And if he's already saying that out loud, you wonder if and his totals this year are not terrible. He's got 10 points in 13 games. That's not too far off his usual clip. But you do wonder if the cliff is about to come here for Ryan O'Reilly in terms of the aging curve.
Yeah, if I felt like I could get a terrific season out of O'Reilly this year and next year, I might just be willing to bite the bullet and eat the 4 or 5 and that, or even I haven't checked if the contract is buyoutable. But you have to be sure that he can be top 3 center, third line center at worst performance for the next, mostly 2 seasons or year and a half, depending on when you get him, I think to make that deal make sense. And remember, Darren Dreger has mentioned it to us several times this year that third line center is still on the Canucks wish list. We know that Teddy Bluger is performing very well. We also remember what happened last year in the playoffs when they just could not find enough goals in their lineup. Ideally, Bluger would be centering one of the best fourth lines in the National Hockey League and in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Some of the other names there, like Nyquist for me is just too old. I know he had a bounce back season, but he's 35 going on 36 there. Well, you brought him up. He's $2.75 million this year and next. He's 35. He's a big right shot defenseman, and of course, he has all sorts of great vibes, including a buddy of Quinn Hughes. But does Luke Shen interest you?
No. You got enough big bodies. Okay. No.
You know what interests me also is Lozon.
If it's going to be a trade where you send one of the other towers, like if you're sending Desharnais the other way or
with
something
a pick
like that.
or something like that, yes.
Then maybe. But in terms of just pure additions,
no. The other guy that interests me a little bit is Lozon. And in part because with Lozon and Sherwood, you would have the 2 guys who throw the most hits in the NHL. A tall left shot defense guy, has played some right side. He's just $2 million this year next, 27 years old. Now, he might be young enough that the Predators look at it and go, okay, well, he's going to be a part of our next competitive cycle. And again, that's presuming that Trotz isn't smoke screening everybody here. Because it is a little bit early. When I read that, I'm like, Barry, it's a little bit.
You just spent all this money.
Yeah.
It's not
You're
happening.
13 games in, but 4-8-1 is not a good record, but I wonder how much of that was frustration, how much of that was the real. And, of course, maybe Barry should cancel a planned team activity. Say to Vegas for a concert.
It's true.
Remember the story last year? They were going to go see U2 in the Sphere and didn't like the way they were playing.
World beaters from there on in, though.
Didn't earn it. You're grounded. Stay in your room. And they were terrific.
Well, it might be frustrating for them is they've played 9 home games already, and they are just 3-6
There
at
you
home.
go. Even more fuel for the red meat theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Throw out some red meat to your...
And they're embarrassed. When you play
for
nine home games, you've only won 3 of them?
Mm-hmm.
Where people were probably signing up for season tickets to see Steven Stamkos, and you give them 3 wins.
Yeah, Marchessault, Shea, and Stamkos. It was quite a free agency for Barry Trotz in Nashville. The Abbotsford Canucks got absolutely smoked by the Ontario Reign, the Kings farm team, last night in California. They lost 8-4. Nikita Tolopilo got the hook in the first period for a second straight start, and then the poor fella had to go back in the game because Yuri Patera got hurt. It wasn't too long ago, and by that I mean pre-Kevin Lankinen, when we were talking about the Canucks' young depth in goal. And look, it is super early. So much can change. But Tolopilo has been absolutely shelled here in the AHL. In 6 games, the goals against is .381. The save percentage is .850. He may have to play more now if the Patera injury is serious. And Patera had done better. He's a .899 save percentage at .279.
Average, anyway.
Goals yeah. So, Ty Young, we may need you here, who's down with ECHL. They allowed 15 goals in 3 games through their California road trip. So goal prevention has been an issue there. The good news, I suppose, is that they have scored some goals. R.C. Baines played his first AHL game this season and had a goal and 2 helpers, 3.9. Kirill Kudryavtsev had a couple of assists. And you're telling me there was a beautiful goal from Danila Klimovich.
Well, Lakramaki scored a goal again, and Danila Klimovich scored again. So there were some offensive highlights, certainly. And again, to have the youngsters like Lakramaki and Klimovich, Klimovich coming down the right side on the power play, curl and drag and ripped one. That's good, but you are worried a little bit about what that goaltending looks like and defensive play maybe in general as well. They maybe hoped that they would have Eric Brannstrom, but alas, not the case. He's still with Vancouver.
Last bit of business here. Starting next season, the NCAA is going to allow CHL players. And look, we knew it was tracking towards this. You now wonder whether the NCAA will be the primary feeder league or system for the National Hockey League. It is already that, of course, for the NFL and for the NBA. There are some restrictions here for players. But look, the definition of amateurism has been fluid for decades now. I mean, when Blake and I were kids, it would be the odd Olympian that would come out of the games with endorsement deals and with enough of a profile to make a lot of money, like a Bruce Jenner and Nadia Comaneci, like that level of a Olympian. And more often than not, American, too. Right? I mean, you might have you would have athletes who did well domestically within their country.
Alex Bauman.
Yeah, but if you were going to break through and actually be, marketed to a broader audience, those athletes were fewer and far between, and mostly American. And it was really the NCAA basketball tournament more than the football side that started driving the conversation of, why aren't these athletes getting paid? Because CBS was paying billions of dollars to put March Madness on the air. And it became harder and harder to look at the athlete and say, no. Tuition, books, and a meal plan, that's enough by way of compensation. And the athlete's looking around going, well, no, we are the product here. Without us, you wouldn't be making these sorts of money, making these sorts of deals. And, of course, that has now morphed into name, image, and likeness, where NCAA athletes can make money off that. The Ed O'Bannon lawsuit, former UCLA basketball player, NBA basketball player, took the NCAA to court. And Yeah. So it stood to reason that we were getting to this point with hockey because, as you and I had said a million times, in what world does it make sense where you bar a major junior player for getting the stipend and whatever the major junior player gets covered financially by calling him professional while also allowing current NCAA athletes to go out and sign big endorsement deals and make all sorts of money while they're competing in the NCAA.
But even the current reworking of the language is a little bit vague and open to a lot of criticism in that they are now saying, okay, you're allowed to get basic expenses covered while you're playing major junior before you arrive in the NCAA. But, of course, name, image, and likeness deals are not basic expenses.
No.
That's not quid pro quo there. That is full-on payment. And depending on your caliber of player, you can be outright well-heeled out of your NIL deal.
There are now kids who are not declaring for the NCAA or for the NFL draft, and NBA draft for that matter as well, because they realize they are longer shots in the pro leagues and stand to make, hundreds of thousands of dollars on a rookie deal, but are making millions of dollars because they are massive deals in big college communities that have well-heeled alumni and are willing to pay them to stay in school.
A star player
play.
On the Iowa Hawkeyes,
Oh, for sure.
Might do a lot better there than they will be
Absolutely.
deep in the draft
Absolutely.
for the NBA or the NFL.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like
So-
if you're a stud for LSU basketball or football, given how much they love their Tigers down there in the Bayou, there are some alum who are going to step up and make it worth your while to stay on campus all 4 years, complete your degree before pursuing the professional ranks. But this has necessarily sent a chill through the Canadian major junior hockey system and beyond, including the junior A system with the BCHL and others. And Blake, quite frankly, though it is, don't anybody mistake me for painting the NCAA and NCAA athletics as completely altruistic in this nirvana or utopia. But I would have to think that there are a lot of parents now that are going to look at this and go, do I want you on a bus somewhere between Moose Jaw and Portland, or do I want you on a college campus potentially, getting your plan B, your fallback plan professionally, a degree,
and
getting a chance to play in a league that is well seen, that is going to, at the very least, be a saw-off in terms of maximizing your pro chances with major junior and being able to make some money while you're there, too. On NIL.
In a lot of cases, there's much bigger budgets for these college teams, and especially in the marquee schools, way bigger budgets.
Sure.
The kid is living in more of the lap of luxury in terms of training facilities and all that sort of stuff. And there's exceptions in the CHL. But also, you talked about visibility. College sports now with college networks that need to fill a lot more time, so they will be televising those hockey games. The CHL is tough to find on cable now.
The CHL has had so many opportunities over the years with both major sports broadcasters in this country and just was never able to grasp that foothold of national interest like NCAA football and
I think we're down to just the playoffs now.
I believe that's correct.
Just the playoffs.
That's correct.
So again,
certainly the games that you can pick up some games on television regionally. There are some markets that don't have pro teams or don't have many pro teams where the CHL is very well attended and distributed locally on media. But it's just never been able to secure the massive national broadcast rights deals that may have prevented this day from coming. And in fact, I don't even think that, because I'm not sure there's anything the CHL could have done here.
Well, and
this was the NCAA moving on its own track, being influenced by factors that really had nothing to do with major junior hockey.
We should also make it clear, the Connor Bedards aren't going to change their trajectory because they graduate high school.
They're not?
Well, no, they're going to graduate high school and get drafted immediately and play in the NHL. Right?
Well, you say that, but of course, Macklin Celebrini went a different route than Connor Bedard. Macklin Celebrini was pretty sure he was going to be a high NHL draft pick at an early age. He chose to go the NCAA route.
But he accelerated his learning to go into school a year early. Did
That
he
is
not?
true.
So was it Quinn that did that too? Quinn did that too, right?
Yes. Quinn was drafted. Whenever you see an NHL play, unless they're an overager for the draft, when they're coming out of a NCAA program, that means they have typically accelerated their learning.
But that takes a special kid to academically get ahead of it so that you graduate early and go to university. For the most part, you're going to graduate high school when you're 18. But again, we're talking about half of 1% here. This is the Connor Bedard's only. That one next step down, where generally you've gone for 2 years to NCAA school, or you've played as an 18 and a 19-year-old in major junior. That's a way bigger group, and there's still some great players in there. That's the player that we're worried about. The tippy top, they're probably just going to keep on keeping on. But that next group is going to be interesting.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see how Hockey Canada reacts here, how the Canadian hockey system reacts here, and whether they're going to do anything to make Major Junior more attractive, to freshen it up, if you will, from where it has been. Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta. Greta, great spot for all the games, home and away, your steps from the stadium, your minutes from the arena. We'll have Canucks Army viewing parties there throughout the season. Come by before, after the game. Check out the great street food menu, the arcade, weekly drink specials. Greta, the place to be, 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. A lot of guests today. Jam-packed show.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Corrado is going to join us. We'll talk Garland. We'll talk Brannstrom, Demco, and others. Jeff Merrick is joining us today. Big announcement from Jeff this morning. If you missed it, I invite you to check out his social channels. But we're gaining a teammate, and we're gaining a weekly regular guest here on Sekeres and Price. And we're delighted to have Jeff, his decades of experience, and, of course, his just natural broadcasting way. There are very few who are more natural on camera or microphone than Jeff Merrick. Very pleased to welcome him to the fold here as a teammate in the Nation Network. And we'll be joined by Rob Williams as well. Rob, the hockey guy from the Daily Hive. Rob, the hockey guy on Twitter from the Daily Hive. Let's get to our Bet365 bets of the day. This segment brought to you by Bet365, proud supporter of Sekeres and Price. So we gave you that JPAT stat about Brock Boeser's career success against the Kings. Let's put our money where our mouths were. Boeser as an anytime goal scorer, he's checking in at plus 180 for tonight. And how about Brock Boeser to open the scoring at plus 800?
I'm going to go look at JT Miller, who, if you go look at his seasons, rarely does he go, this is unbelievable for JT Miller, rarely does he go past 4 games without a multi-point game happening. Now, it's only been 3 without a multi-point game. But again, rarely does he get to 4 or past 4. I think he can get 2 points tonight, plus 220 on a 2-point effort from JT Miller.
Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION. New code there, NATION, when opening that account. Frank Corrado coming up next.
I'll be honest, I don't get to many games anymore, whether it be at the arena or the stadium. Ticket availability cost, it's a bit of an issue these days. So I prefer to go where there's atmosphere, and I know I can get in. Greta Bar YVR. Soak up all the atmosphere with your fellow fans and enjoy a great night with a great street food menu. I prefer the poutine. Weekly drink specials as well at Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova. And we'll be having our viewing parties there all season long as well. Your pregame, your postgame, it's at Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. This segment is powered by Square. If you run a restaurant, you're too busy for this ad. You're thinking about how to get more orders flowing, new locations opened. You got to get customers, have them coming back. So really, you're already thinking about Squares, because Square Restaurant Tech helps more than 400,000 restaurants do all those things and more. So when you're thinking about your restaurant, think bigger and think Square. Go to square.ca and see why Square is big in restaurants as we welcome in former Vancouver Canuck, TSN hockey analyst, and annual participant in the Canucks Autism Network charity hockey tournament, Mr. Frank Corrado.
What's going on, boys? It was a good time. Got to give a shout out to my Port Moody boys. As you know, they love the show. They listen all the time, and we had a good weekend together.
Did you pad
Right.
some stats? What'd you do? Give us the lowdown here.
We
What was the
were
breakdown?
we're a very modest team,
Yeah.
modest team this weekend. We were right down the middle. I think
Okay,
we won
all
one,
right.
we lost one, one went to shootout. It was good.
Did you play right side defense?
No, I was playing center actually the first couple games, and then they asked me to go play defense for the third game. So that must tell you all you need to know about how well I played center ice.
Tiger can't change its stripes. Speaking of being modest, though, I have it on authority. Frankie was the 3rd overall pick of this draft.
Was he?
Yeah.
Kessler number 2, number 1?
Kessler number 1.
Yeah.
Who's number 2?
Barnaby.
Matthew Barnaby.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
I
they love
received
you.
a little bit of flack for that. I think the word going around was, what the hell are you guys doing picking that guy 3rd overall? I think he played, like, what did I play? Maybe 50 games, 40 games for the Canucks, something like that. Maybe not even. So, there were some rumblings, but that's what happens when you assert yourself well the first go around. And the boys wanted to have me back on their team, and they actually raised more money this year than last year so they could secure a higher pick. And we had a great weekend together. It was awesome.
How'd Kessler look, by the way?
Probably like he could still play. Like he's he's still got that same kind of body, like just big guy with the broad shoulders. He's got the big beard going right now. Actually, like I didn't play against him. I just caught like a quick glimpse of him hopping on the ice. But Eddie Lack looked pretty good as a forward out there. Like Eddie
as a forward, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Eddie could have been, big. I don't know if he would have been a power forward, but he's got pretty good hands and moves well for a guy that's long and lanky.
The goalies love to play out. Kirk plays out still, doesn't he?
Yeah.
They love to skate.
Yeah.
Act the stork.
I think Luongo skates out now a lot of the time too. If he does, yeah.
Okay, back to business.
Yeah.
Conor Garland, we're asking on our poll question, what is he to the Canucks, star player or role player? But he has arguably been the best Vancouver Canucks skater through 11 games this season. Talk to me about Conor Garland's game, what you see, what you like, and how he's having so much success.
Well, I think to piggyback off your poll question there, like he's somewhere in the middle between star player and role player. Like he's like a star role player, if that makes sense, because he's so good at doing his role, and it's a hard role because he's got to have energy, he's got to get under the opponent's skin, and he's got to do that consistently while still producing points. And when Garland was, when he first came here, and I think a lot of people would have loved to get rid of that contract, you could see there were signs of Garland, the game that kind of made him a good player, where, he had the energy, he could get under the opponent's skin, but at his price tag, he had to produce a little bit more. And once he started to pull it all together, that's when he kind of turns into the star role player for this team. And, for guys that have to do it the hard way like that, it's obviously not easy. It's also not easy for him because he's not built, big. Like he's not 6'2", 210 pounds. So it becomes even harder for him. And I think that's what makes it, so impressive that he's been able to do it so consistently, basically over the last, all of last year and especially into this year, where he's been very consistent. He's been very reliable. He's been a go-to guy. He's been good on the power play. He's been good at 5-on-5. Like all these things are true for Conor Garland. So, he's an important player to the team. And, if you want to talk about the star players being in the top tier, he is, right below that. If you want to call it tier 2 or tier 1B, he's very important to the team and he's very good at playing his role. And he's added to that as time has gone on in Vancouver.
Durability is going to be interesting. Like he's never played at this level for 82 games, like actually being leaned on. Do you think he can withstand the grind at his size and everything for 82 games and be as useful as he normally is in the playoffs as well?
I do, because it's different now. Like it's so funny. Like I've told you guys this story before, but I'm at a game in Toronto and I'm sitting there with Chris Versteeg. We're in the Leafs alumni box, and one thing leads to another. We start talking about little plays on the ice, and we kind of say like, okay, when you and I were in the league, which is not that long ago, that would have been a cross check. And then that would have been a box out that started at the boards, instead of not even starting at all or starting in front of the net. And, there would have been a little more interference there. And like we started, picking up on all these things and how it's changed. It's so much more free flowing. So, two things. Conor Garland has always had to do this. He's always had to be the small guy, and he's always had to find a way to create his own space. That's nothing new for him. He's never been the biggest guy, so that's nothing new. The other thing is the game has opened up a little bit more where, like I just mentioned, there's more room for guys to get to the net. It's a little easier to get yourself out of a pile in the corner. And so with that being said, like the conditions are good for him to be able to do it over a long period of time. The other thing is he's got the confidence, right? Like when your game is not in a good place and you feel like it's not all coming together for you, you don't feel as confident. Like there's times where you almost say, okay, I don't want to be put in that position, or I don't want the puck there. When it's going well for you, you want to be in the middle of everything because it's just, you're going to be able to provide something for your team. And I think, he's never been a guy to shy away from it, but the conditions are good for him to be able to contribute for a long period of time because he's always had to fight through it. And now it's a little easier to be able to fight through it in the NHL.
Kings are a good test for the Canucks overall. They've played well to start the season, and that's without Drew Doughty, of course. Do you have faith that the Kings will be a team to be reckoned with after 82 games?
Well, coming into the season, that would have been my easy pick to say, okay, you don't have Doughty. You're a little thinner, if you want to call it that, down the middle of the ice without PLD, and you have huge question marks in net. So like that was my, if any team was going to fall off in the Pacific, that was the easy pick. Now, they have played really good hockey. Like they've surprised me with how they've been able to kind of stick to it as a team. And I think, the Doughty not being in the lineup thing has been softened a little bit by Brant Clark's really good play, like the young defenseman who, was going to be a guy. I just don't know if they expected him to be this guy this quickly. But he's played great. And LA, the fact remains that they have to work together as a group, all in unison, because there's not like the huge superstar power on that team, and they've done that. So, force to be reckoned with is maybe reserved for the teams like, I don't know, Dallas. I guess you could probably, if everything is going well for Vegas, that they're the forces to be reckoned with. But LA is they're a good team that is probably exceeding the expectations of myself and maybe other people that thought like this would have been the year where maybe they take a step back.
Your boy Eric Brannstrom is approaching the 10-game, 30-day mark where he will require waivers. The good news is I don't think he's going on waivers anytime soon, Frank. He looks very much like he's going to be a regular player for the Canucks, and you sort of called it with us on the eve of the season when you talked about what he has to do to get in the good graces of a coach that you well know in Rick Tocchet.
It's interesting. So I watched Brannstrom and I see the nice assist off the rush, and that was that the Sherwood goal where he just kind of dumps it on the little backhand saucer pass, and I'm like, okay, team can't score off the rush, and there he is, the defenseman who's able to get up in the rush, able to make a play when he gets up into the rush. And the thing that Brannstrom has working for him, I think, in this situation is that, yes, he's not your typical kind of third pair defenseman because he's smaller, he's a puck moving guy, whatever. He's had to do this now. He's had to play lower on the defensive totem pole for a long time. So I feel like he's really he's become accustomed to that, like playing the not lesser minutes, but not playing the huge minutes, being a decent puck mover, and not being a liability defensively. Like this has kind of been where he's lived with DJ Smith in Ottawa over the course of the last few seasons. So this is not uncharted territory for him. So I like the fact that like he's been there, and this is just and Vancouver needs a defenseman who can get up in the play and move the puck so badly. This is a situation where if he is playing on your third pair, he like they need that. So it works for him in a number of situations. And I just think there's, if he can maintain his reliability and his trust, I have a hard time thinking he's, not with this team for the rest of the year.
And you wonder with the Colorado start to the season, do they regret how it all went down? I mean, they had a certified National Hockey League defenseman. It's just really weird. They see the last few months have been a weird turn for Eric Brannstrom.
The Colorado thing is interesting because, them not having defensemen is not the reason why they got off to such a poor start. Their goaltending was historically bad for the first, 4 games of the year, and then they rattled off some wins. And so, I don't necessarily think they were missing Eric Brannstrom. I think Colorado maybe should have signed Kevin Lankinen, right? Like,
yes.
if you're thinking about what they're, you could have signed that guy for under $1 million and had him as your backup guy. And then after 2 games of Georgiev playing dodgeball, you could have put Lankinen in and had what the Canucks are getting in that goalie right now. Instead, they ended up claiming Kakinen off waivers. He wasn't able to play for them right away. And, they're still that kind of like Jekyll and Hyde kind of team, I guess. But that's where I think the regret would have lied more with Colorado, is not scooping up Lankinen before the Canucks did.
Hey, in our ongoing search for defensemen who are available on the trade market and that may interest the Vancouver Canucks, I want to run a name by you just because I've seen it out there. Jonathan Kovacevic in New Jersey, a 27-year-old right.
Zero chance. Zero chance. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm in New Jersey right now. We're calling the Habs versus Devils game tonight. And so what I do is obviously do my prep. I watch, a game or two beforehand of the opposing team. And then I go read like all the press clippings from the past couple days. And this Jonathan Kovacevic, who I watched a lot in Montreal, they love him in New Jersey. Sheldon Keefe cannot get enough of this guy. So they initially signed him to be the depth, 7th or 8th guy. And then Pesce was hurt. Luke Hughes was hurt. And they put Kovacevic in the lineup. And he played great, like really good right off the bat. And then now Pesce's back. Hughes is back. That has pushed Nemitz out of the lineup here, the kid that got drafted 2nd overall after Slavkovsky a couple years ago. And like they basically have said about Kovacevic, like this guy is not going anywhere and he's a big part of their team. And so with this team being, obviously in the mix for the playoffs, they're 3rd in the Metro right now. Like New Jersey's a good team. But they kind of see this guy as like, he's their 3rd pair right shot defenseman, and they're going to work around that. Like they love what he brings to the table here. And he's good. He's 6'4", he's 225 pounds. And the crazy thing is, it's funny how timing is everything. Situations are everything. He was in Montreal for 2 years, I believe. 2 years in Montreal.
Yep.
And they didn't bring him back. And they have all these guys, Struble, Jack-Eye, Barron. Obviously Lane Hudson's in a different situation because he's so different, but it's basically those 3 guys, right? And they basically have elected to move forward with the other guys. Now, Kovacevic goes to a better team, and he's a regular there. And in Montreal, he was, 8th or 9th on their depth chart. But it's crazy how that works. Like sometimes the team, situation in the standings doesn't tell the whole story, because he's a big part of New Jersey's blue line. He's a good player.
Oh, he's playing 21 minutes a night. And I just looked at him and said, here's a guy who's bounced around from 2 organizations, UFA to B. And yet, he may well have found his home with the Devils, as he's pocket style defenseman too, huh? Foot style defenseman.
Yeah, I think if you're a coach, you can appreciate having a guy like that is, pretty rock solid and can, 21 minutes is a lot for him. Like I think he's probably better suited in like the 15 to 17 minute range, but like can give you those quality like regular shift minutes and can move the puck like decently. Like he's not super smooth or crispy with it, but like it's good enough, and he's really stout defensively. And I think that's the big thing where, Tocchet would appreciate a guy like that probably, moves better than and moves the puck better than a Forbert or a Desharnais.
Yeah, and poor Forbert looks like he's going to miss some time here.
Yeah.
Is it too Disney Channel of me to suggest that Thatcher Demco appearing at practice with the players is a boost to the Canucks? Do they get anything out of seeing and actually taking shots on Demco for the first time? Does that do anything for a team?
I'm trying to think, if the goalie's coming back and I see it, I think it's good. Like, I think it's good to have a guy like that around because he's a big part of your team. And anytime there's a bigger presence, a bigger player, like the dressing room just feels a little more empty. So having him in those situations, I think, definitely helps. It's still just feels like it's so, is it even real? Like, is he actually coming back soon? It feels like it's still, when's it going to happen? It
feels a little ceremonial still at this point.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like I felt last Saturday at breakfast. Is it really real? Is this Frank Corrado sitting across from me? And when is he coming back to Vancouver after this weekend?
In the flesh. I don't know when I'm coming back, but I don't know. Hopefully it's soon. But yeah, and hopefully Demko's coming back soon, right? Because listen, Lankinen's been great, but at some point the season turns from great start, for some guys, and now it's time to flip the page and say, okay, at some point we're going to be going down the stretch here, getting ready for the playoffs, and what does our team look like, and what kind of moves are we going to make at the deadline? We're a little ways away, but it's it creeps up on you for sure.
Also, it's also the most relaxed portion of the schedule. Like the Canucks are 3 games in arrears from a lot of teams, so they've had some breaks, and eventually they're going to need to give Lankinen a break.
Yeah.
Marvelous stuff, Frank. It was great having you in town last weekend. Enjoy Jersey, and we'll catch up next week.
Buddy, it was great to see you, and thank you for breakfast. That was very nice of you. Stand up, man.
He was going to pay. I said, no. My company's got this one.
What a mensch.
Regular contributor.
Oh.
We'll get that through the accountants.
It's happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day from Yellow Dog, the High Five Hazy IPA.
Some price from the historic Wall Center in this next segment, brought to you by Ben Moss Jewelers. Ben Moss, proudly Canadian-owned, operated with a history dating back more than 100 years. 5 locations here in British Columbia, including Willowbrook and Langley, Coquitlam Center, committed to customer satisfaction. They got a large selection of Canadian mined diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, diamonds with payment plans to suit your needs. For more information, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, shine bright.
We have found a diamond of our own.
Indeed. And we've been celebrating our 1-year anniversary here with the Nation Network this week. And lo and behold, it's time to welcome in a new teammate. You know him really well from his work over the years, hockey broadcasting, the 32 Thoughts podcast. It is our pleasure to welcome to the show and welcome to the team, Mr. Jeff Merrick.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. So you're 1 year, I'm 1 day. Am I here for a rookie lap? Is that what
exactly? Yeah.
Sekeres and Price rookie lap here, boys.
Helmet is off, though. That's good.
Take a tour around the living room, Jeff. We'll wait on you.
Just got this menu from your producer. I guess I'm bringing you guys lunch, too. Is that Yes, sir, right. Mr. Price, Mr. Sekeres. Yes, right away, sir.
Just carry my bags to the door. That's all I ask.
You have history with our producer, 4-time Juno Award winner, Mike Rogers.
I know.
He worked with you guys on 32 Thoughts.
He did. He saved us numerous times is what he did. Totally bailed us out. Mike, we love you. Thank you so much. What's up, boys?
We have you on the show because you had a big announcement today. You're joining the Nation Network with your new show called The Sheet.
The Sheet, the sheet as in game sheet, as in score sheet, or the sheet of ice was kind of a metaphor that's been sitting there for a number of years. And I'm kind of surprised that no one has picked it up, and I'll pick that up, ladies and gentlemen, quickly. I'm really thrilled to be here. The one thing that I've been telling people about the Nation Network, and you guys know this better than I do, having worked here for a year already, the creative freedom that you're allowed here, and the way that, and even I've just been with this group, talking to them for only a couple of weeks. It seems as if this is a company that tries to find a way to say yes to ideas as opposed to the default knee-jerk reaction of no, and we're not going to tell you why you're not going to be able to do that. Like when I first started talking to the group here, it was, and you guys have been part of interviews like this before, well, if you came over here, what would you like to do? And I just, shot for the moon and said, bam, 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 just ran down laundry list style. And they said, okay, would there be anything else to that as well? And it turned into this sort of huge job profile, but it's like this wish list of things that I've always wanted to do. And the other thing that I really find attractive about the Nation Network is there's this really nice dynamic of established veteran voices like yourselves, and there's young sort of future superstar, future impact players, and not just people that are front facing as well, like, behind microphones and behind cameras as well, which is like a really healthy mix of both, people that are getting their careers underway and people that have been here for a long time. And, that dynamic really appealed to me as well. And listen, I get to work with my old 32 Thoughts producer, Amel Delich.
I know.
And you know how I have a soft spot in my heart for Amel. So I'm a fan of so many of these shows. Like I listened to you guys for, back when I was doing 32, I listened to you guys for, my Canucks info. And I would say, well, you know what? I got to steal that take from Blake over there. Oh, Maddie made a great point. Let me see if I can fudge some words and make it my own. So I'm thrilled.
Well, you're very kind.
Here. Well, and, you know what they say: greatness borrows, but genius steals. So
there you go.
Yeah.
You're very kind, and you're so right about had a similar experience observation here at the Nation Network. It kind of reminds me of being back in my newspaper days when there were big bustling newsrooms. You remember when there used to be big bustling newsrooms, Jeff?
And
it was a great thing.
Bustling radio stations
too.
With wheels spinning and razor blades and chalk and tape and get this and this, load this cart. No, that's all those days are all gone.
Yeah, I can remember walking in the Fan 590 way back in the day when you were there, and Wilner was going off to the Blue Jays and Howard was going off to the Leafs. You actually had reporters going out and making calls and trying to figure things out. It was an amazing environment to be in. So glad to welcome you.
Yeah, thanks. What are these reporters you speak of, by the way? These reporters
exactly.
you speak of, I'm unfamiliar.
Paid reporters in the field. It's the damnedest thing.
What?
Tell us more about the sheet. How often's going to go, and what's going to be?
What was on that laundry list?
Yeah, exactly.
What was up? Well, there's a lot of things. I'm not sure what's in the release, but let's just splash it all out there. So, I mean, the sheet's going to be a daily show that turns into, like your guys have, turns into a podcast. 3:00 Eastern, noon Pacific. It's going to be sort of what I've wanted to do is kind of take a because it's in a day part where last night's news has already been discussed, and we're just starting to have that peak to the games that are coming up. So you sort of exist in this sort of interesting little pocket where you get a lot of time to sort of talk about stories and talk about issues. And the one thing that I wanted to do with this thing, I was talking to my producer about this the other day, is have this, if I can be pretentious for a second, this, as Akira Kurosawa documented in his fantastic movie Rashomon, essentially having 360.
I've seen that movie.
It's a fantastic. It's one of my favorite movies, and the premise is very simple, and it's been ripped off by everybody, most notably Quentin Tarantino. An event takes place, and the rest of the movie is telling about that event from all the different perspectives. And so, what I thought might be a nice little thing to do on a daily show is you have the news of the day and you sort of present it from, I guess, a 360 view is the most easy way to describe it, the all different views. So if there's a, like last week with, the Montreal-Pittsburgh game with Nola Chari and Yuri Slavkovsky and then Arbor Jackeye afterwards, you sort of present the Montreal side and you present the Pittsburgh side, and then there was a Hockey Night in Canada controversy about it, and you sort of layer your own opinion on top of it. So it's a nice day part to be able to talk about issues and try to provide, everything is prologue, as much context as you can for all the issues and stories of the day. All wrapped up in an hour, and news and stories and interviews, and we're coordinating guest co-hosts along the way too.
Love your takes on prospects and other leagues as well. I'm assuming you're going to do deep dives on that sort of stuff and PWHL, NCAA, all that stuff.
All of that, yeah. It's a pretty interesting time for the CHL, the NCAA, and eligibility rules, which is going to affect every single level of hockey. And I guess congratulations to the NCAA at the end of all of this. They find a spot on top of the development pyramid. What does that mean for the CHL? What does that mean for the USHL, the BCHL, et cetera, et cetera? All these things are going to get worked out. This show will be all over that. I'm really looking forward to working with Stephen Ellis. I think, when we talk about, future impact players and burgeoning stars in the industry, that guy is all over it. So I'm looking forward to working with him. PWHL season is on the horizon as well. Very much looking forward to season 2. I'm sure you guys saw the jersey reveals. If you didn't like the names, don't worry about it. The jerseys look pretty sweet, and so you can enjoy that. Looking forward to season 2. And then there's just there's so many things. Like, I don't look at hockey as just, the National Hockey League, but you sort of look at it from an ecosystem point of view and how it all works together. Like, essentially, I'll approach this show like I've approached any other show that I've ever done, and that is, how does this work? And if you can explain how things work, then I think you're doing your job. You guys had a really interesting conversation about and finding context, both historical and current, for Quinn Hughes on yesterday's show, which I found really fascinating. And it got me, you guys were talking about Quinn Hughes and how does he fit into, the best players with the Vancouver Canucks. And there's a Marcus Naslund conversation, and Henrik and Daniel, of course, 1 and 2, Exhibit A and Exhibit B. And then you got into the conversation, which I found really fascinating, about defensemen and the Lady Byng. Mm-hmm. And you brought up Jacob Slavin, and you're right. I don't know. The one thing about Jacob Slavin that I've always said, you always hear, teams and players talk about, he's got a good stick. He's got a good stick. There's no better stick in the NHL than Jacob Slavin. One of my favorite things to watch is Carolina Hurricanes games, and your viewers can watch this themselves once I mention it. Watch when Slavin's on the ice. Have you ever seen anyone slide the puck under his stick? It doesn't, it's almost, it's Lidstrom-like.
Right.
You do not put this puck under Jacob Slavin's stick. It's one of those skills that players look at and go oh, that's amazing. But anyway, so he's picked up a couple of Lady Byngs as well. And you mentioned Brian Campbell. So, and I'm with you on Brian Campbell for the Lady Byng, and he should have won the Lady Byng, and he did. But Brian Campbell laid one of the most devastating body checks we've ever seen in the history of hockey. Do you remember the R.J. Umberger hits in the Buffalo-Philadelphia series? It's clean, it's perfect. I think that R.J. Umberger's grandkids are going to have migraines from that hit that goes back to 2010. But I've always felt that we almost need a redefinition of the Lady Byng Trophy. And I'm going to give you one example. You guys talked about Trevor Linden yesterday. And there was, on his last games against the Calgary Flames, and Jerome Iginla, I remember watching the game, and Iginla wouldn't let Flames players leave the ice. He insisted on and directed all the Flames players to go over and shake Trevor Linden's hand, both as a player, but also as, I guess, the last president of the NHL Players Association. And I said to myself, you know what? Jerome Iginla fought 4 or 5 times that year. Jerome Iginla probably put up 70 or 80 penalty minutes as well. But for that one gesture, I'd include him in the Lady Byng conversation as far as gentlemanly player, because all we say now is big points and no penalty minutes. But I don't know that I saw anything more gentlemanly that year than Iginla making all the Calgary Flames players go and shake
what's the
Trevor
Mark
Linden's
Messier
hand.
award though? Isn't that the leadership award? Would that be filed under the Mark Messier award maybe?
I guess if you squint really hard, maybe. Yeah. But if you just look at the definition of the Lady Byng, I still think let me give you another example, Blake. I think the Zdeno Chara, when he played in the NHL, should have won the Lady Byng Trophy every year.
Because he just didn't kill everybody?
Yes,
so for that?
Not because of what he did, but what he chose
what he could have done.
He could have maimed the entire league. He could have, I know.
We'll rename it the Great Restraint Award.
Because Pronger did maim the whole league.
Yes, it's true.
Pronger did, and Zdeno Chara chose not to, which was nice of him.
Yes. Yes.
It's very
But
sporting.
Anyway, I thought it was an interesting. The one other thing I want to throw in about Trevor Linden really quickly. I love telling this story, and it involves teeth. I remember being at one of the hockey days in Canada back when I was working at CBC, and Trevor was with us, and we were sitting down at dinner, and I said, what was the moment where you realized you were retired? Because when it happens, it doesn't dawn on you for a while. And he said, it didn't dawn on me until I was in the dentist chair fixing my teeth. that I said to myself, you know what? I'm really never now, because why would you fix your teeth when you're playing? Well, I think Robert Thomas in St. Louis just had dental surgery. His teeth look great. Why would you do it while you're playing?
Yeah, bad move.
But Lyndon said, like, it wasn't until I was in the dentist chair that I realized, wow, I'm really not going back here. I'm really never going back.
Funny.
Yep. Thomas, those teeth have a lot of miles still to get through here.
Dave Tomlinson told us the same thing. He had his his sort of the temporary fakes in. He's like, I'm not getting it done until I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. So you're really done. That's when you invest.
Yeah.
That's when
well,
you know.
we're glad.
That's when you know.
We're glad our partners here at the Nation Network have invested in you, buddy. Welcome to the team, the sheet, everybody. Daily. When are you getting going here, Jeff? When is this start?
Early December, probably the 2nd, I would imagine.
Okay.
I don't think we've made that official yet, but that makes some sense.
And you'll be joining us as well.
Whenever you call, I can bore you with Trevor Linden stories and Richard Brodeur stories and Pavel Bure. You pick it. I can bore you with any number of stories.
We're looking forward to it.
Yep.
Thanks,
Jeff.
boys. You be well.
Happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day, Yellow Dog Squirrel Chaser Hazy Pale Ale.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
And the next time you feel like you need to indulge yourself and also feel part of the season, you should check out what the culinary team at White Spot has come up with for this fall and early winter. The comfort menu.
Is there a chicken pot pie?
There is chicken pot pie.
Are there mini Yorkies?
There are mini Yorkies. Braised beef burger. Home-style pot roast, prawn and bacon carbonara, rich, filling meals that'll have everybody pushing themselves. You know when you push away yourself from the family table and you're like, we ate.
Oh, that was a good meal.
Eat today. Find your local White Spot.
Rob Williams is the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports Vertical. Rob, the hockey guy on Twitter. He joins us usually on Thursdays. How are you?
I'm hungry now.
Are we all?
I feel like getting I need a BC burger or something. Did I ever tell you guys that one season, the 2021 season, the lockout, or not the lockout, the COVID-y season where there was no fans in the building, going to games and the team's just terrible. I used to joke with everyone. I was like, the only reason I'm here is for the triple O's, which was what the media meal was every game.
Yeah,
I went there for my trip. I'm going off on my. I've never been more John Garrett than right now, but
it's true. The pathos was real that season, as I recall. We had to do the second part of it here in the digital space. You remember counting down the days till that son of a gun was over.
My gosh.
Rob, let's start with the poll question today. Conor Garland, role player, star player. Discuss.
you got to say he's a star player now. I mean, he's playing in all situations, top six, playing on the first power play unit. He's playing him on the penalty kill. And he's not a passenger in the top six. He's driving play, right? Like he is, I think he's found a bit of chemistry with Elias Pettersson, but like it's Garland bringing along Pettersson, and whoever thought that we'd be saying that, a year ago, even 6 months ago. But here we are. I think he's become a star player on this team. And like, where would they be without Conor Garland?
We kind of fell into this poll question because we were nibbling around the edges of Kiefer Sherwood, actually. And then we landed on this poll question. But Kiefer Sherwood might be the king of the role players now with the way that he's playing. And, we've just sort of started to marvel at his availability in the summer and the fact that it took him this long to break through. I mean, he's going to be turning 30, so it's kind of crazy. But Kiefer Sherwood has been indispensable.
Yeah, it's funny when the Canucks signed him, I felt like he was almost overhyped, like at the time. Like how much do you really know about fourth liners on other teams, right? But you're hearing people say, "Oh, he's got this great shot. Maybe they could put him on the second power play unit. Maybe he's being underutilized in Nashville." And I thought, and it all made sense to me, but I just all kind of wondered, like, you hear this a lot of times about a player the Canucks signed in free agency that not a lot of people knew a ton about before they signed him, and now everyone's talked themselves into this guy being this amazing value signing. But boy, has he ever been an amazing value signing, like better than I think he's exceeded lofty expectations and the hype. He's doing absolutely everything that you'd hope for Kiefer Sherwood to bring to the team. We expected the hits. I mean, he's done that and more. You look at him, chirping with Zegras last game, really, getting players off their games and providing offense. Like he's got more goals and more points than Elias Pettersson right now. Unfortunately, it's a low bar at the moment, but 3 goals, 7 points in 11 games. What else could you possibly ask for Sherwood? And I think he's definitely not I know recently we were talking about Garland and saying, okay, he's a top 6 guy now. He's not a third liner anymore. Kiefer Sherwood looks like a third liner, not a fourth liner. And it's, I think that's one thing to monitor as the season goes on. I think he's become a real fan favorite already in Vancouver. And I think he's, definitely one of the more popular new players on the team.
More likely, Garland turns into this generation's Alex Burrows, or Sherwood turns into this generation's Jannik Hansen?
Probably Sherwood turns into this generation's Jannik Hansen, but Hansen never hit like Sherwood. Like Sherwood can really throw it. Hansen was game, but he didn't, have the punishing results. Going to be hard for. I mean, the amount of goals Burrows scored, that would be tough for Garland to match. But I'm going to answer Sherwood on the secondary poll question here.
And one of the things we love about you, Rob, is you bring us those light, bright stories, oftentimes with the Vancouver Canucks and their fans and their activities online, but sometimes in other markets as well. Tell us about this beer-chugging Leaf fan you've uncovered.
Who's taking it to the man?
Oh, I love everything about this story. So Curtis from Alberta, I don't know if you've seen him on social media, you may have. He's got over 50,000 followers on TikTok. I think he's over 25,000 on Twitter. Big on social media. One of the more famous Leafs fans online, I would say. He's a Leafs fan that lives in Alberta. His whole shtick is he has this basement that is covered wall to wall in Leafs gear. It's kind of incredible how much stuff he has, and he films himself reacting to things, yelling, not quite Steve Dangle style, but yelling, and his whole shtick is he drinks a beer to celebrate, and he'll yell that he's going to go get another beer, and he has this whole thing. Anyways, he came out this week and said that the Leafs had reached out to him and basically told him he can't drink beer with Leafs merchandise in the shot unless it's the official sponsor of the team. So the official sponsor of the Leafs, Molson Coors, unless he's drinking a Molson Coors product, they've threatened. I don't know if it was Molson Coors or if it was the Leafs, but he's been threatened with a cease and desist for continuing this. Now, part of this is he does have a partnership with a small local craft brewery in Edmonton that has designed a special can for him, and I guess he's been drinking this on camera. But it's one of these things where it's like, okay, like the amount of bad press, like it's these two giant billion-dollar organizations trying to stomp on the little guy. And what I love, though, is that he has turned this right around because he made it public right away. And now, like, the bad press, like, this is not worth it at all for the Leafs or Molson Coors. And now everyone's rallying behind Curtis from Alberta. Leafs fans obviously are in his corner. Budweiser has actually come out now and said that they're behind Curtis from Alberta. So some smart, smart.
Now I hope
counter marketing.
I hope Budweiser steps up with some dollars for this guy, because Budweiser's words are merely giving them good shine without really helping him at all, because he can't drink Budweiser and do the show anymore. So he's it really, they're just taking advantage. I hope that Budweiser has a little bit of shine for him to make it all worthwhile.
Hey, you better tread carefully if you cross Curtis from Alberta, as we've seen, right? Like if he comes out and says, "Hey, Budweiser hasn't given me a damn thing,"
that's right.
That won't look good on them. I'm sure they're giving him something, but this whole thing strikes me as like, first of all, why care about this? Like, this is so small and insignificant. Like, to actually, for Molson Coors or the Toronto Maple Leafs to care that some guy he's not making big bucks off this. I mean, he claims he's not making any money off of this. He just thought it was cool having a can for himself. So like, this is not like a threat to their business at all.
No,
for either company. So I don't get why you would do this. And if you thought that this was significant enough, like he does have a big enough voice that he does matter, which was why you would theoretically bring this up. Why not be smart about it and give him free Molson Coors stuff? Like,
right.
Hey, we saw your videos. We love it. Like, we'd love to like give you this, and this, and do it that way. And then you get ahead of it. Like, be creative. Don't be.
It's a no-brainer.
It was right
don't
there.
Don't be tone deaf here. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, drink Yellow Dog myself. Neighborhood as well.
They never let us down. They never let us down.
Local craft.
I would drink Yellow Dog on camera any day, guys.
You know what? Mike, send him a box of beer. All right. We know how to market on this show. Send Rob a case of Yellow Dog. Rob, let us know when it arrives.
Too. It's better than when he was drinking. So
yeah, let us know when it arrives. We'll catch him next Thursday. Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center. You can text us 778-402-9680. Email live at sekeresandprice.com. All of it to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips.
Going to be great. Really great.
So we are one day out from the biggest Vancouver Whitecaps match in their MLS history.
Travel day, in fact. They depart today.
At LAFC. Game 3 of this round 2. It is officially round 2, best of 3. Caps coming off their 3-0 fantastic win. I could argue the best win in Caps history too, right? In fact, you can argue maybe they've had 2 of those in this postseason alone against Portland and LAFC. I got to hand it to Vanni Sartini. Just listening to him this week, reading him this week, what he said to us last week. He believes in attacking football. That's their identity, and that's what they're going to do. It kind of reminds me of Pat Quinn and the Gillis era here with the Canucks. They were going to play offensive hockey. You remember that, Blake?
Yeah.
Like, they understood there were people around the league who believed in a defense-first trapping system that really dumbed the game down and affected the entertainment value. And they just rejected that on principle, right? No, this is a game that is supposed to be played with pace, supposed to be played going forward and looking for goals. And Vanni is very much in that vein. What I worry about from a Caps perspective is you're hoping to get into a back and forth game with a team that's got more offensive talent than you, that is pretty darn good on the counter attack. And do you have to, at some level, when you get deep into playoffs and championship level competitions, have to be able to adapt what you do to the weaknesses of your opponents and play away from their strengths? You've told me all week that, much like on Sunday when he dressed an offensive lineup and said, go get it in the first however many minutes, and sure enough they did, that we're going to see that again. You also tell me that if they were to get a goal, there is a park the bus potential here, but more likely in the second half. Is all of that?
Yeah, all that still tracks.
Okay.
I'll take a little bit of umbrage with that they've got more firepower. I don't think we know what this 11 is really only played together for a month. And this 11 contains two of the top scorers in the league in White and Gauld, and has a newcomer, DP, that has clearly added to the attack. And LAFC has replaced an attacking role with Olivier Giroux, who by pedigree, of course, is tremendous. He has not scored an MLS goal yet. He scored for LAFC in other competitions. He has not scored a Major League Soccer goal yet.
Mm-hmm. So LAFC was fourth in the Western Conference this year with 63 goals. That was 11 better than the Caps.
Yeah, who battled some injury. Lost White, lost Gauld.
Yeah, Caps gave up 49 this year. LAFC gave up 43. And 43 was third best in the MLS West this year. So, look, when Belanga touches the ball, it scares the bejesus out of him.
Completely.
Like every single time.
For sure. And it should.
Just about every single time.
And it should.
Yeah, he is that level of class and quality.
I'm going to be curious what the formation is going to be. Like, do they just run it back and say, beat us? Or do they preemptively move? Like, the one possibility I'm wondering is, now he's generally played a pure three at the back. I wonder if
and then that shifted to four at the back here late, but he'll tell you it's four at the back when defending. Right. It's three at the back.
It's a 3.5
when you're on the ball.
I wonder if they go to three at the back, morphing to a five at the back.
Yeah.
If they get a lead, so they might start like they did, and then if they get a lead, they use two wing backs. So I wonder if they run back the same lineup, because then Berhalter can.
And Berhalter was one of the surprising starters.
Yes.
But
he was wonderful.
Yeah, he was. And his metrics are really good. When he's on the pitch, a lot of goals go in. Now, I'll preface this by saying Vanni Sartini has forgotten more about soccer this morning than I will ever know. But I do wonder, as a big underdog here, and they are a big underdog, do you just have to throw something different at them and get them thinking? So not quite run it back, play a different tactic, get the LAFC players thinking, trying to figure something out in the early stages. Because here's the thing. The longer that this game stays tied, advantage Caps. Every single minute that comes off the clock with the score tied is a good minute for Vancouver Whitecaps FC. Because what you're trying to do here is get that seed of doubt planted and that anxiety and panic setting into the LAFC players in the second half. Oh, my God. Are we going to really lose to the 8th seed? Are we really going to lose 2 in a row to this team? Should be a lot of fun. We invite you. They have a big watch party going on at Goodco on Granville tomorrow. It's a 7:30 kickoff, everybody. I know earlier in the week it was 8 o'clock, 7:30. It's the standalone MLS game here. The winner is off to play the Seattle Sounders.
MLS season pass at 7:30 as well on Apple TV, and you can listen at whitecapsfc.com. If you sign up to become a Whitecaps insider, you get access to the watch party tickets as well. Whitecapsfc.com for that as well. Enjoy, folks. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I was also struck by what Vanni said about Canadian international Ali Ahmed. That in the midfield, that's the real Ali. That's where he shines. That they've played him on the wing. That Canada's played him on the wing, and even at right back or left back. But he talked about how Ali is most comfortable in the midfield. And I also saw that piece on Canadian Soccer Daily that Bundesliga, Serie A, and League One sides have inquired on Ali. Yeah?
If Ali figures out what to do when he reaches the box, holy cow. Because he effortlessly goes box to box.
He's a talented player.
What he does when he gets there is sometimes questionable. But he's young. Yeah. I mean, he can figure that out. If he figures that out, he's a tremendous player.
Well, and it's all good news here, because either the Caps keep him and have a improving young player in their midst and at their disposal, or when you talk about Bundesliga, Serie A, and League One, those typically are pretty good transfer fees. So that would mean some cash in the coffers to be able to go out
For his own development, I hope he goes somewhere where he plays, though. We've seen this.
Well, that's it. Yes.
Like, there's a lot of Americans. The U.S. men's national team might have been set back by shipping out so many players to Europe.
To go languish on benches.
Right, where they don't play.
Right.
And you got to worry about Tejan Buchanan a little bit in that regard, too. You got to play.
Right.
So, I mean, I think another year for Ali, personally.
Congrats to Justin McInnes and Sean White of the BC Lions. Both of them made it through to the all-CFL team announced today. The sad part here is there are 27 spots available on this team, 12 offense, 12 defense, 3 specialists, and the Lions had but 2. God, at 5-1, I was sitting there thinking, might it be like 8 to 12 Lions? They were playing so well. McInnes, he led the league in receiving. We told you he was the first Canadian to lead the league in receiving yards since Andy Fantus 14 years ago. It was the second most receiving yards by a Canadian in BC Lions history, trailing only Matt Clark with 1530 in 1991. McInnes had 1469. And it was the 8th best mark all time in the CFL for a Canadian receiver. So hugely deserved. Wow. He was absolutely, for my money, the best part about this Lions season. Watching this good young receiver. We knew he was a good young receiver. You know, he looked like he might just be a complimentary part, and he blossomed this year into an outright star. So congratulations to Justin. Really enjoyed our conversations with him as well. It is the third all-time selection to the All-CFL team for Sean White. The longtime Lion, of course, White Rock guy. We have great fun when we talk to Sean. It's second straight for Whitey on the All-CFL team. And staying with football here in the province of British Columbia, good luck to the Okanagan Sun. They play for the Canadian Bowl Junior Football Championship on Saturday. They play the St. Clair Saints, which were once upon a time the Windsor AKO Fratmen. These two teams actually met 2 years ago in a semifinal that the Sun won. The Sun went on to win a Canadian Bowl. We used to call this the Little Grey Cup championship in Regina that year. They've won it again in 88 and 2000, so searching for a 4th national championship. And the other thing I love about football in this province is even when the Lions are done, even when the university and college teams are done, and too bad for UBC getting upset last week, you still got the high school games that are going on. In fact, the last football game played each and every year in this country are the BC High School's football championships that BC plays. So good luck to all the young football players who have some big games coming up. Poll question results from Wednesday. Will Quinn Hughes be the best player in Canucks history? Yes or no? What do the people say?
People said yes.
Indeed. Percentage.
That's the question. Is it closer to 60 or closer to 80? I'll go 69.
You know, you've been pretty good recently. You've got it on the number twice in the last week. Today's not one of those days. 88.
88. Okay, I am floored by the unanimity there.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
We might have juiced the jury there off a 3-point effort against.
But still, Matt, like all time is a long time.
Yeah. Big Blue Guru, and so many in the comments saying he already is. Well, to me, that's diminishes and frankly toes the line of offensive on some pretty good players who have been here in the past and are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Big Blue Guru, it will always be Bure, even though he shouldn't have his number retired. That's an interesting distinction.
Yes, indeed.
Roy says yes, because he will be the one to bring us to a Stanley Cup. Salt and Paprika says if he spends the majority of his career here, yes. Saw a lot of that in the comments as well, that if he re-signs and has another contract with the Canucks where he's performing like this, that it's only a matter of time. And Scotty says top 3 Canucks all time are Henrik, Daniel, Bure. Bure in 428 games had 478 points for the Canucks. Hughes as a defenseman already has 345 and 376. I think by the end he'll be far and away the best Canuck to ever put on the jersey. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program, and I mean this is somewhat staggering. I don't have an error or omission. Do you? Anything to self-report?
We do have something from a couple of days ago.
Good.
From my friend on the MLS broadcast, Todd Morgan.
He's
our stats man.
Okay.
And so he said, hey, boys, with reference to giveaways and takeaways not matching up. Remember we referenced this a few days ago?
Right.
I stand to be corrected, but I believe the NHL treats them as forced and non-forced errors. A giveaway is a non-forced error by a player that causes a change in possession. A takeaway is awarded to a player that forces an error by an opponent that causes change of possession. That's why they don't often match.
That tracks. Yep, I like that. Well done, Todd.
That makes sense. Thank you, Todd.
Appreciate it. And you filled up the segment for us.
There you go.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. We are live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time, weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local. Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.